Today we're exploring the book Dark Psychology by Vincent McDaniel, not as boring theory, but as something we can actually apply in real life. If you face these problems too, then I truly invite you to listen to this entire book. So before we begin, just ask yourself, have you ever wanted to protect yourself from manipulation, and at the same time understand how influence really works? Have you ever wanted to understand how manipulation happens quietly, politely, and invisibly, and how advertisements, social media, and authority figures seem to speak directly to your fears, your desires, and your insecurities without you even realizing how they're doing it? Have you ever felt like learning how to read people, understand influence, and recognize manipulation could change how you see the world? So let's start. This audiobook is inspired by the ideas and themes from the Dark Psychology book by Vincent McDaniel. And as we move through this together, I want you to imagine that we're just sitting somewhere quiet, maybe late at night, maybe early in the morning, and I'm gently talking to you about things most people never stop to notice. Not because they're hidden in some secret place, but because they're hiding in plain sight, inside everyday conversations, inside small decisions, inside the way people look at each other, speak to each other, influence each other, and slowly shape each other's reality. You see, from the moment you wake up in the morning, you're already inside a world that is constantly trying to guide you, nudge you, pull you in certain directions. Some of it feels harmless. A suggestion from a friend, a tone in someone's voice, a story on your phone that makes you feel a certain way, a little comment from a colleague that stays with you longer than it should. And most of the time, you don't even realize it's happening. It just feels like life. It feels natural. It feels normal. But under the surface, there are patterns. There are techniques. There are subtle ways people influence thoughts, emotions, and choices without ever asking directly. That's what this journey is about. Not about making you afraid. Not about turning you into someone cold or calculating. But about helping you see clearly. Helping you recognize what is already happening around you, so you're no longer blind inside your own life. Because once you can see, you're no longer as easy to push. Once you understand the game, you stop being only a piece on the board. Think about how often you've felt pulled into something without fully knowing why. Maybe you agreed to something that didn't really feel right. Maybe you trusted someone who later disappointed you. Maybe you felt guilty when you shouldn't have. Maybe you felt responsible for someone else's emotions, even when they were using that responsibility to control you. These moments aren't random. They follow emotional and psychological patterns that repeat again and again across people, cultures, relationships, and situations. One of the most powerful things about influence is that it rarely announces itself. It doesn't say, "I'm controlling you now." It comes disguised as kindness, as concern, as logic, as urgency, as love, as authority, as friendship. It speaks softly. It blends in. It feels familiar. And because of that, most people never question it. They accept it. They absorb it. They adjust their behavior around it. And slowly, their choices stop feeling fully their own. You might be wondering, how does this really work in daily life? It starts with something very simple: attention. Whoever controls your attention controls your emotional direction. If someone can make you focus on a certain fear, a certain desire, a certain problem, or a certain hope, they already have one hand on the steering wheel of your behavior. That's why news headlines are dramatic. That's why advertisements speak to emotions more than logic. That's why some people in your life always seem to bring conversations back to themselves, their problems, their needs, their opinions. When your attention is guided, your feelings follow. And when your feelings follow, your actions usually come next. And here's something important to understand gently, without judgment. Most people who influence others are not sitting somewhere plotting like villains in a movie. Many of them are doing what they learned, what worked for them, what helped them survive, succeed, or feel powerful at some point in their life. Influence isn't always cruel, but it becomes dangerous when it is unconscious, when it's unbalanced, and when it benefits one person while quietly draining another. That's why this is not just about seeing manipulation out there, in strangers, companies, or systems. It's also about noticing it in relationships, families, friendships, and even inside yourself. Because yes, we all influence each other. Every time you speak, every time you react, every time you stay silent, you are shaping the emotional environment around you. Now let me say something very honest and very human. Realizing all this can feel uncomfortable at first. It can feel like the world suddenly looks less innocent than it used to. You might feel a little disappointed, a little angry, a little sad. You might look back at certain moments and think, oh, that's what was happening. That's normal. That's part of waking up. You're not becoming cynical. You're becoming aware. Awareness doesn't take the beauty out of life. It actually gives you back your power inside it. Because once you understand how influence works, you can choose how you respond. You can choose what you let in and what you gently push away. You can choose when to engage and when to step back. You can recognize when someone is speaking to your fear instead of your reason. You can notice when someone is trying to rush you into a decision before you've had time to feel it through. You can hear the difference between a sincere request and a subtle emotional pressure. And slowly, something beautiful starts to happen. You become calmer. You become clearer. You stop reacting automatically. You stop being pulled into emotional storms that don't belong to you. You start feeling more grounded inside yourself because you're no longer constantly adjusting your inner world to fit other people's expectations, moods, or manipulations. You start living from choice instead of from pressure. This is not about becoming cold. It's not about becoming detached. It's not about seeing everyone as an enemy. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent enough to protect your inner space while still being kind. It's about being open without being naive. It's about being compassionate without being controlled. And from this place, something else becomes possible too. You start understanding how your words affect others, how your presence affects a room, how your tone can calm or agitate, how your silence can speak louder than arguments, how your emotional stability can become a quiet form of leadership. Not loud, not forceful, but steady. So as we go deeper into this journey together, I want you to stay gentle with yourself. You're not here to judge your past. You're here to understand it. You're not here to blame others. You're here to see patterns. And you're not here to turn into someone else. You're here to become more fully yourself. More aware, more grounded, more free. And that's where everything truly begins. As you stay with this awareness, something subtle starts shifting inside you. You begin to notice not just what people say, but how they say it, when they say it, and what emotional space they are trying to create around their words. It's almost like learning a new language, not made of sentences but of tone, timing, pauses, expressions, and energy. And once you hear this language, you can never quite unhear it again. Think about how often influence hides inside emotion. A sigh that makes you feel guilty. A smile that asks for agreement without asking. A raised eyebrow that quietly judges. A soft voice that seems gentle but carries a quiet command inside it. None of these things are dramatic. None of them look dangerous. But together they shape behavior more effectively than shouting ever could. And most of the time, we respond automatically. Someone sounds disappointed, and you rush to fix it. Someone sounds confident, and you assume they're right. Someone sounds hurt, and you feel responsible. Someone sounds urgent, and you stop thinking clearly. This is not weakness. This is human wiring. We are social beings. Our nervous systems are tuned to other people. We mirror, we adapt, we adjust because for most of human history, belonging meant survival. But what once protected us can now be used to guide us without our consent. This is why emotional influence works so well. It doesn't argue with your logic. It bypasses it. It goes straight to your feelings because your feelings are fast. They move before your mind can catch up. And once you feel something strongly enough, you naturally start looking for reasons to justify it. Not the other way around. So you feel anxious, and then you find reasons to worry. You feel guilty, and then you find reasons why you should give in. You feel excited, and then you find reasons to commit. Emotion leads. Logic follows. When someone understands this, even unconsciously, they gain a quiet form of power. Now pause for a moment and think of a time when you changed your mind not because you discovered new facts, but because the emotional atmosphere changed. Maybe someone you respected looked disappointed. Maybe someone you loved seemed distant. Maybe someone became very warm and kind all of a sudden. The facts didn't change, but your inner state did, and that shift moved your decision. That's how invisible influence works. And again, this is not about villains and victims. This is about patterns. This is about understanding the emotional mechanics of everyday life. Another important piece of this puzzle is identity. People are deeply attached to who they believe they are. Kind person, strong person, smart person, independent person, helpful person, loyal person. And once someone connects a request or an idea to your identity, it becomes much harder to say no. If you're really caring, you'll help me. If you're really smart, you'll see that I'm right. If you're really strong, you won't let this bother you. If you're really loyal, you won't question this. Notice how none of these statements directly demand anything. They simply describe who you are supposed to be. And then your own desire to stay consistent with your self-image does the rest of the work. You move. You comply. You adjust. Not because you were forced, but because you wanted to remain yourself. And this is one of the most delicate and powerful forms of influence there is. Because we don't defend ourselves against what feels like our own choice. Now here's something very important to understand gently. The moment you become aware of these patterns, you don't suddenly become immune to them. You don't turn into a robot. You don't stop feeling, but you create a small pause. A space between stimulus and response. A breath. A moment where you can ask yourself, what am I actually reacting to right now? The situation, or the emotion it created in me. That pause is freedom. That pause is the difference between being moved and choosing to move. And as you practice this awareness, you'll notice something else too. You'll notice that some people feel uncomfortable when you stop reacting the way you used to. When you don't rush to fix. When you don't immediately agree. When you don't explain yourself emotionally. When you don't absorb their moods. When you stay calm while they are emotional. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because the old pattern has changed. And when patterns change, dynamics change. Some people will respect you more. Some will feel confused. Some may try harder. Some may pull away. This is not a sign that you are becoming worse. It's a sign that you are becoming clearer. And clarity is powerful. Because clarity allows you to respond instead of react. To choose instead of comply. To feel without being controlled by feeling. Now let's talk quietly about the other side of this. Just as others influence you, you influence others. Every time you enter a room, you bring a certain emotional weather with you. Calm or tension, openness or defensiveness, warmth or distance. People respond to that, even if they don't consciously notice it. If you speak slowly, others slow down. If you stay calm, others soften. If you listen deeply, others open. If you become reactive, others become guarded. This is not manipulation. This is emotional resonance. This is human connection. But when you become aware of it, you gain responsibility. You can choose to be someone who escalates chaos or someone who brings steadiness. You can choose to spread anxiety or calm. You can choose to use your presence to pressure or to support. And the more grounded you are in yourself, the less you need to control others to feel safe. This is the quiet paradox. The less you try to control, the more influence you naturally have. Because people trust what feels stable. They trust what feels real. They trust what doesn't push. So the deeper this journey goes, the less it becomes about techniques and the more it becomes about inner alignment. About knowing yourself well enough that no one else has to define you. About being emotionally honest enough that you don't need to manipulate to be heard. About being self-aware enough that you don't need to defend constantly. You become strong, not by hardening but by grounding. And from that place, you start walking through the world differently. Not as someone constantly reacting to hidden strings, but as someone gently aware of them, stepping around them, choosing your own direction. And that is a very quiet kind of freedom. As this awareness settles deeper into you, you begin to sense something that most people live their whole lives without quite touching. You start to feel the difference between what is happening outside of you and what is being created inside of you. And that difference matters more than almost anything else, because the outside world only ever reaches you through your inner world. Through your perceptions, through your interpretations, through the meaning you give to things. Two people can walk through the same experience and come out completely changed in different directions, simply because their inner filters were different. One sees threat, one sees challenge, one sees rejection, one sees information, one feels attacked, one feels curious, and from that moment, their lives start unfolding on different paths, even though the event was the same. This is why influence is never just external. It only works when it finds something inside you that it can attach itself to. A fear, a desire, a wound, a hope, a need to belong, a need to be seen, a need to be safe, a need to feel important. Influence whispers to these places. Not loudly, not aggressively, but softly, in the same emotional language those needs already speak. And when you don't know your own inner landscape very well, when you haven't looked at your own fears and longings with honesty, it becomes very easy for others to press those buttons without you even realizing there were buttons there. This is why self-awareness is not a luxury. It's a form of protection. When you know what you are afraid of, fear loses some of its power over you. When you know what you long for, longing becomes less likely to blind you. When you know what hurts you, hurt becomes less able to silently steer your choices. You don't eliminate these things. You befriend them. You understand them. And in that understanding, they soften. This is one of the quiet truths of psychological influence. The less you are aware of yourself, the more the world gets to decide who you are. But the more you know yourself, the less the world can shape you without your permission. Now let's talk gently about one of the strongest emotional forces of all, the need for certainty. Human beings crave certainty. We want to know what's going to happen. We want to feel safe. We want to feel like we understand the world. And when something threatens that sense of certainty, our nervous system reacts quickly. We feel uneasy. We feel tense. We feel the urge to resolve that discomfort as fast as possible. And this is where influence often steps in. Someone offers a clear answer when you feel confused. Someone offers a strong opinion when you feel unsure. Someone offers a plan when you feel lost. Someone offers direction when you feel overwhelmed. And because uncertainty feels uncomfortable, you're naturally drawn toward whatever seems to remove it. Even if that answer is incomplete. Even if that opinion is biased. Even if that plan benefits someone else more than you. Even if that direction leads somewhere you might not choose if you were calm and grounded. Certainty is seductive. It feels like safety. So one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is learn to sit with uncertainty without panicking. To breathe inside not knowing. To allow questions to exist without immediately demanding answers. Because in that space, your clarity grows organically instead of being imposed from the outside. And this changes how you make decisions. You stop rushing. You stop clinging. You stop grasping for emotional relief. You begin choosing from a quieter, deeper place. Now let's turn our attention to something even more subtle. The stories you tell yourself. Your mind is constantly narrating your life. It's explaining events. It's assigning meaning. It's telling you why things happen, what they say about you, what they say about others, and what they say about the world. I'm not good enough. People always take advantage of me. I have to prove myself. I can't trust anyone. I always get left behind. I need to be needed to be valued. These stories feel personal. They feel like truth. But very often, they are interpretations built from past experiences that no longer reflect your present reality. And influence works beautifully through these stories. Because if someone can speak in a way that fits your internal narrative, you'll believe them more easily. If they match your fears, you'll trust their warnings. If they match your hopes, you'll follow their promises. If they match your self-image, you'll accept their suggestions. This is not because you're weak. It's because the mind seeks coherence. It likes when the outside world matches the inside story. So when someone says something that fits your internal narrative, it feels right. Even if it isn't. This is why part of becoming free is not just watching others, but gently questioning your own stories. Not to judge them, not to fight them, but to ask, is this still true? Is this still serving me? Is this helping me live, or is it just protecting me from an old pain? Because when your internal story becomes more honest, more compassionate, more grounded, the external voices lose much of their power over you. You no longer need someone else's certainty to feel safe. You no longer need someone else's approval to feel valuable. You no longer need someone else's direction to feel oriented. You carry that stability inside yourself. And from that place, something very beautiful happens. You become harder to manipulate, not because you're guarded, but because you're clear. Not because you distrust everyone, but because you trust yourself. Not because you're closed, but because you're centered. And when you're centered, you can still love deeply. You can still connect openly. You can still care genuinely. But you do it without losing yourself inside it. You stop bending in ways that break you. You stop shrinking to keep others comfortable. You stop abandoning your own truth to keep the peace. And this doesn't make you harsher. It makes you kinder in a deeper way. Kinder because you're no longer acting from fear. Kinder because you're no longer trying to earn your worth. Kinder because you're no longer trying to control outcomes. You're simply present. And presence is one of the most powerful forces there is. Because presence sees clearly. Presence listens deeply. Presence responds wisely. Presence doesn't rush. Presence doesn't panic. Presence doesn't beg. Presence chooses. And that choice, that is where your true power lives. As you stay with this sense of presence, something else begins to soften inside you. The constant inner tension, the need to defend, to prove, to justify, to explain, to protect yourself from being misunderstood or unseen, it slowly loosens its grip. And in that loosening, you discover a quieter strength, a steadier one, a kind that doesn't announce itself and doesn't need to be recognized to exist. This is the strength that comes from knowing where you stand. Not in the world, not in other people's eyes, but inside yourself. Because when you know where you stand internally, the outside world no longer needs to hold you up. And this changes how influence touches you. Before, you might have felt pulled when someone was upset. Now you notice the feeling without immediately acting on it. Before, you might have felt rushed when someone pushed urgency. Now you notice the urgency without letting it hijack your clarity. Before, you might have felt small when someone acted confident. Now you notice the confidence without shrinking beside it. You stop absorbing other people's emotional states as if they are your own. And this is not coldness. It's differentiation. It's the understanding that you and the other person are two separate emotional systems, two separate inner worlds, touching each other but not responsible for managing each other. This is where healthy boundaries quietly grow. Not boundaries made of walls, but boundaries made of awareness. You begin to feel where you end and where others begin. You feel what is yours to carry and what is not. You feel what is yours to fix and what is not. And from that place, your relationships begin to change in subtle but profound ways. You stop overgiving. You stop over-explaining. You stop over-accommodating. You stop shrinking your needs to make space for everyone else's. And because you stop doing these things, something interesting happens. The people around you either begin to meet you in a more balanced way, or they drift away. Not because you push them out, but because the old imbalance no longer has a place to stand. And that's okay, because the purpose of awareness is not to hold everything together. It's to let what is real remain and what is artificial fall away. Now let's talk about something that sits quietly beneath many forms of influence: emotional hunger. Everyone carries emotional hunger. A hunger for connection, for recognition, for safety, for meaning, for belonging, for love. There is nothing wrong with this hunger. It is human. It is what draws us together. It is what makes us care. But when this hunger becomes desperate, unconscious, or unexamined, it becomes a doorway through which others can easily walk into your inner world and rearrange the furniture. If you are starving for approval, someone's praise becomes intoxicating. If you are starving for love, someone's attention becomes addictive. If you are starving for direction, someone's certainty becomes irresistible. If you are starving for safety, someone's authority becomes comforting. And slowly, without meaning to, you give your power away to whatever seems to feed the hunger. Not because you are foolish, but because hunger narrows focus. When you are hungry, you stop asking where the food came from. You just want to eat. So part of becoming free is learning to feed yourself emotionally. To give yourself recognition instead of waiting for it. To give yourself validation instead of chasing it. To give yourself permission instead of begging for it. To give yourself safety instead of outsourcing it. And this does not mean becoming isolated or independent in a cold way. It means becoming internally resourced. So that connection becomes a choice, not a necessity. So that love becomes a sharing, not a grasping. So that influence becomes a dialogue, not a surrender. Now notice how this changes your energy. You become calmer. You become slower. You become more spacious inside. And because you are no longer rushing to fill something, you stop being so easily led. You stop being pulled by emotional hooks. You stop being swayed by pressure. You stop being trapped by urgency. You stop being dependent on external approval to feel okay. And this is deeply liberating, because it gives you back time. Time to feel. Time to think. Time to sense. Time to choose. And choice is the opposite of manipulation. Choice is the space where your true self lives. Now here's a very gentle truth. Most people don't want to control you. They want to feel safe. They want to feel seen. They want to feel important. They want to feel valued. And sometimes in trying to get those needs met, they use strategies that quietly push on others. They guilt. They pressure. They withdraw. They charm. They perform. They dominate. They rescue. Not because they are evil, but because they are afraid. Afraid of being unseen. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of being powerless. Afraid of being insignificant. When you understand this, you stop personalizing everything. You stop seeing every push as an attack. You stop seeing every influence as a threat. You see the human need underneath. And from that understanding, compassion becomes possible without surrender. You can care without complying. You can understand without agreeing. You can love without losing yourself. And this is a very high form of emotional maturity. It's not dramatic. It's not flashy. It doesn't look powerful from the outside. But inside it feels like peace. And peace is a very quiet kind of strength. Because peace does not need to defend itself. Peace does not need to prove itself. Peace does not need to control. Peace simply is. And when you are at peace, influence no longer enters you as a force. It arrives as information. It becomes something you can look at, consider, feel into, and respond to consciously, instead of something that moves you before you even realize what's happening. So as this awareness continues to unfold inside you, notice the gentleness that comes with it. Notice the softening, notice the clarity, notice the steadiness, notice how you begin to trust yourself more. And as that trust grows, the world becomes a little less threatening, a little less overwhelming, a little less loud. And you become a little more free inside it. A little more free inside it, and from that freedom something very gentle and very honest begins to grow, the ability to see situations as they are instead of as your old fears or old hopes once painted them. You begin to notice when someone is trying to rush you, and you no longer feel the same internal panic. You notice when someone is trying to make you feel guilty, and instead of immediately reacting you feel a quiet question rise inside. You asking, is this truly mine? To carry. You notice when someone is trying to charm you into agreement, and instead of being swept away you feel your feet stay on the ground, and all of this happens not with tension, not with resistance, not with coldness, but with a calm inner steadiness that simply watches and understands, and this watching, this understanding, is what slowly dissolves the hidden power that influence once had over you, because influence needs unconsciousness to survive. It needs you to be asleep to your own reactions. It needs you to move before you notice yourself moving, and now you are noticing, and in that noticing there is space, and in that space there is choice, and choice is where your dignity quietly returns. You begin to feel a deeper respect for yourself, not the loud kind, not the proud kind, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you are no longer abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. You are no longer saying yes when your body says no. You are no longer explaining yourself endlessly to be understood. You are no longer shrinking to avoid conflict. You are no longer performing a version of yourself that fits better into someone else's expectations. And this changes the way you walk through your days. It changes the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you respond. Your words become slower, more deliberate. Your silence becomes fuller, more present. Your yes becomes more meaningful, and your no becomes more peaceful. And people feel this even if they cannot name it. They feel that you are not easily moved, not because you are rigid, but because you are rooted. And this rooting does something very beautiful. It invites honesty, it invites real connection, it invites people to meet you where you actually are instead of where they can push you to be. And some will meet you there, and some will not, and both outcomes are a kind of truth. And you no longer fear that truth because you trust yourself enough to stand inside it, and from here your relationship with control changes. Completely. You no longer seek to control others because you no longer feel controlled inside yourself. You no longer need to dominate outcomes because you no longer fear them as much. You no longer cling to certainty because you have learned how to sit inside not knowing and still feel okay. And this is a very deep form of freedom, because it means you are no longer living in reaction, you are living in response. You are no longer moving because you are pushed, you are moving because you choose, and this choice is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is not announced, it is simply lived. It is lived in the way you pause before answering, it is lived in the way you listen to your body when something feels off, it is lived in the way you allow discomfort without trying to escape it, it is lived in the way you let others have their feelings without trying to fix them, it is lived in the way you hold space instead of filling it, and slowly, gently your life becomes less about managing other people's emotions and more about honoring your own truth, and from that place you become someone others feel safe around, not because you control them, but because you do not pull them, you do not push them, you do not manipulate their fears or seduce their hopes. You simply meet them as they are and invite them to meet you as you are, and that invitation is powerful because it is rare in a world full of pressure and performance. And when someone meets you in that space, something real happens, something human, something alive, and that is what connection truly is. Not control, not influence, not persuasion, but presence, two inner worlds touching without trying to rearrange each other. And from that place you can still inspire, you can still guide, you can still lead, but you do it through example, not through pressure, through clarity, not through confusion, through steadiness, not through urgency. And this kind of influence does not drain others, it strengthens them, it does not shrink them, it expands them. It does not bind them, it frees them, and you realize that the deepest form of power is not the ability to move others, but the ability to remain yourself while moving through the world. And the more you remain yourself, the more others feel permission to do the same. And that is how something quiet begins to ripple outward. Not a strategy, not a technique, not a plan, but a way of being that slowly changes the emotional tone of everything it touches. And you see now that dark psychology is not only about understanding how people are influenced, but about understanding how you were influenced so you can return to yourself, and from that return you live differently, you speak differently, you choose differently, you love differently, you walk differently. And nothing dramatic needs to happen on the outside for something profound to have happened on the inside, because the moment you stop being pulled by invisible strings, the moment you stop dancing to emotional music you did not choose, the moment you stop giving your inner world away to outer forces, is the moment you quietly step into your own life, and from here everything becomes simpler, not easier always, but simpler, clearer, truer. And in that truth you find a peace that does not depend on circumstances, a stability that does not depend on approval, a confidence that does not depend on control, and you realize that this was never about mastering others, it was about meeting yourself, and from that meeting your life begins to unfold not as a reaction, but as a creation, not as a defense, but as an expression, not as a struggle, but as a flow, and that flow carries you gently forward into whatever comes next with open eyes, a steady heart, and a quiet trust in your own presence. That quiet trust becomes something you carry with you into every room, every conversation, every moment, where once you might have felt small or uncertain, or pulled into someone else's emotional gravity. And now, instead of tightening, you soften, instead of shrinking, you widen, instead of bracing, you breathe. And in that breath there is room for choice. And you start to notice something very subtle, but very important. You begin to notice that many situations that once felt heavy were heavy not because they were truly dangerous, but because you were carrying other people's expectations inside your own body. You were holding their hopes, their fears, their urgency, their disappointment, their need for reassurance, and you were calling all of that responsibility. And now you are slowly laying that weight down, not in anger, not in rebellion, not in bitterness, but in clarity. You see that every person must carry their own inner, whether you can walk with them through it, but you cannot walk it for them. And the moment you stop trying to walk other people's inner worlds, your own becomes lighter, your steps become easier, your energy returns to you, and you begin to feel a kind of spaciousness inside that you may not have felt in a very long time. And from that space your intuition becomes clearer, because it is no longer drowned in noise. It is no longer competing with the constant need to please or fix or manage. It can speak softly and be heard, and it speaks not in words but in sensations, a tightening, a softening, a warmth, a heaviness, a lightness, a sense of openness, or a sense of contraction. And you learn to listen to these signals not as commands, but as information, not as rules, but as guidance. And this guidance does not tell you what to do, it shows you what is true, and truth is always simpler than fear. Truth does not rush you, truth does not pressure you, truth does not shame you, truth does not flatter you, truth simply reveals, and you feel it when something is aligned because your body relaxes. Your breath deepens, your mind quiets, and you feel it when something is misaligned, because your body tenses, your breath shortens, your thoughts race, and you no longer ignore these signals, you no longer override them to be polite or to be nice or to be accepted, you honor them, and in honoring them you honor yourself. And this self-honoring is not selfish, it is stabilizing, it makes you more present, more grounded, more available for real connection. Because you are no longer fragmented, you are no longer split between what you feel and what you show, you are no longer torn between what you know and what you do, you become whole, and wholeness is deeply calming, not only to you, but to everyone around you. And people may not know why they feel calmer with you, but they do. They may not know why conversations feel easier, but they do. They may not know why conflicts soften in your presence, but they do, and this is because you are no longer carrying hidden agendas, you are no longer trying to steer outcomes. You are no longer secretly hoping to be liked or approved of or needed, you are simply here. And that here is enough, and from that enoughness your actions become cleaner, your words become truer, your boundaries become kinder and firmer. At the same time you can say no without hardness, you can say yes without resentment, you can disagree without hostility, you can walk away without drama, and you can stay without losing yourself. And this balances what many people search for through power, through control, through manipulation, through performance, but you have found it through awareness, through honesty, through presence, and it is a much deeper kind of strength, because it does not need to be proven, it simply is. And from here your relationship with influence changes again. You begin to see that the most effective way to influence a situation is not to push it, but to clarify it, not to manipulate it, but to illuminate it, not to force movement, but to remove confusion. And when confusion is removed, people naturally move toward what is real, what is clear, what is simple, what makes sense, and you become someone who brings clarity not because you try to, but because you live it. And clarity is contagious, it invites others to slow down, to reflect, to feel, to think, and in that slowing people often discover their own truth. And when people discover their own truth, they do not need to be controlled, they move from the inside, and that movement is strong and sustainable and honest, and you realize that This is what leadership actually is: not standing above others, but standing within truth, not pulling others forward, but walking clearly enough that others choose to follow, not because they must, but because they want to. And you see how different this feels from the old world of pressure and persuasion. The old world felt tight, rushed, anxious, exhausting. The new world feels spacious, steady, alive. And you can still navigate complexity, you can still handle conflict, you can still face manipulation when it arises, but you do it from a place of steadiness, not fear, from clarity, not confusion, from self-trust, not self-doubt. And this changes everything, because fear always gives manipulation its doorway, and self-trust gently closes that door, not by locking it, but by making it unnecessary. And you realize that many of the games people play are only necessary when they feel powerless inside, when they feel unseen, unheard, unsafe, unloved. And you no longer take these games personally, you see them as signals of unmet needs, unhealed wounds, unacknowledged fears. And this does not make you naive, it makes you compassionate and strong at the same time. You can see someone's pain without becoming responsible for it. You can see someone's strategy without becoming trapped in it. You can see someone's story without becoming lost inside it. And you remain yourself inside all of it. And that is freedom, not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to remain who you are no matter what is happening around you. And this freedom is quiet, it does not announce itself, it does not boast, it does not demand recognition. It simply moves through your life like a gentle current, carrying you toward what is real, what is honest, what is alive. And you find that you trust this current more than you trust any plan, any strategy, any control, because it is rooted in reality, and reality always supports what is true. And from here you walk forward, not with a map, but with a compass, not with certainty, but with trust, not with control, but with presence. And you discover that this way of living is not only more peaceful, it is more effective, more resilient, more connected, more alive. And slowly, gently, you become someone who does not need dark psychology to protect themselves, because you have light awareness instead. And that light reveals everything you need to see exactly when you need to see it. And you are no longer afraid of what you might discover, because whatever you discover, you trust yourself to meet it. And that trust is the deepest safety you can ever have. And from that place of trust, something else begins to unfold quietly, almost invisibly. At first you notice that you are no longer scanning the room for danger or approval or opportunity, you are simply present. And that presence itself becomes the most powerful thing you bring into any space. Because presence dissolves illusions, it softens defenses, it invites honesty without demanding it. And when people sense that you are not trying to take something from them, not their attention, not their agreement, not their energy, not their loyalty, they relax. And when people relax, they reveal themselves, not because they are forced to, but because they feel safe enough to do so. And in that revealing, you see what no technique could ever show you. You see the real motivations behind the words, you see the fears behind the anger, you see the longing behind the manipulation, you see the loneliness behind the charm, and you are not tempted to judge it or fix it. You simply see it, and seeing is already a kind of healing, because it brings light where there was only reaction and shadow before. And this is how your understanding of dark psychology transforms. It is no longer something you use against others, it becomes something you see through. And because you see through it, you are no longer moved by it in the same way. It does not hook you, it does not trigger you, it does not pull you into games of power or control, or proving, or defending. You can stand inside a manipulative situation and feel the currents without being swept away by them. You can sense the pressure without absorbing it, you can hear the words without swallowing the intention behind them. And that gives you space. And in that space you can choose, and choice is everything. Because without choice we are just reacting, and reaction is where manipulation thrives. But when you choose, you are no longer available for unconscious influence, you are conscious influence itself, not in a dominating way but in a stabilizing way. You become a point of stillness inside motion, a point of clarity inside confusion, a point of truth inside distortion. And people feel that even if they cannot name it, they feel less chaotic around you, less anxious, less driven to perform or pretend. And sometimes this makes them uncomfortable, because they are not used to being with someone who does not mirror their fear or their urgency or their need for control. But that discomfort is healthy. It is the discomfort of meeting oneself without distraction, and not everyone wants that, but those who do will find something in your presence that they may have been searching for without knowing what it was. And that is permission, permission to be real, permission to slow down, permission to not know, permission to feel what they actually feel instead of what they think they should feel. And you realize that this is how influence truly works, not by pushing, but by allowing, not by convincing, but by revealing, not by manipulating, but by embodying. And embodiment is the deepest form of communication, because it bypasses words and goes straight to the nervous system, to the emotional field, to the place where trust is either formed or broken. and you are now someone who forms trust not through tactics, but through coherence. Your words match your tone matches your energy matches your actions, and that alignment creates safety, and safety creates openness, and openness creates truth, and truth creates movement. And this movement is not frantic, it is not forced, it is organic, like water finding its way downhill, like a seed pushing toward light, like breath moving in and out. And you begin to trust this organic movement more than any strategy, because it is aligned with life itself, and life is always more intelligent than control. And you see how much effort people spend trying to control outcomes, when what they really want is to feel safe and seen and valued. And once you understand that, you stop trying to win and start trying to connect, not in a needy way, but in a grounded way. You offer presence instead of pressure, you offer listening instead of argument, you offer clarity instead of confusion. And these offers cannot be resisted, because they do not impose, they invite. An invitation is always more powerful than force, because it respects autonomy, and autonomy is the deepest human need. We want to choose, we want to feel that our life is our own, that our yes is real, that our no is allowed. And when you honor that in others, they feel honored. And when people feel honored, they open. And when they open, real things can happen, real conversations, real healing, real cooperation, real change. And you realize that the opposite of manipulation is not weakness, it is respect. And respect is not passive, it is active. It takes courage to respect another's autonomy, because it means you cannot control their choices, you cannot guarantee outcomes, you cannot force alignment, you must trust. And trust feels risky until you realize that control is actually far riskier, because control creates resistance, and resistance creates conflict, and conflict creates distance, and distance creates loneliness, and loneliness is what drives most harmful behavior in the first place. And so by choosing respect, you are choosing a path that may feel slower, but is actually deeper and more sustainable, and you begin to see that many of the things you once wanted through influence you now receive through resonance. Opportunities come because you are clear, not because you are clever. Relationships deepen because you are present, not because you are persuasive. Conflicts resolve because you are steady, not because you are dominant. And this changes your relationship with power. Power is no longer something you seek, it is something that flows through you when you are aligned with truth. And that power is quiet, it does not shout, it does not threaten, it does not seduce, it simply stands, and in standing it shapes the space around it like gravity, like a mountain, like the ocean tide. And you become comfortable with not being the loudest voice, not being the fastest mind, not being the most impressive personality, because you have discovered something more reliable than all of that. You have discovered yourself, and yourself is not an image or a role or a strategy. It is a living, breathing presence that moves with life, responds with wisdom, feels with honesty, and acts with integrity. And this integrity is not moral. It is structural. It means your inner world and your outer world are no longer at war. And when that war ends, energy is freed, creativity returns, joy becomes possible, and you feel a lightness that is not superficial but deep and grounded. And you realize that this is what all the techniques, all the theories, all the strategies were pointing toward: not control, but coherence, not domination, but alignment, not power over, but power within. And you smile a little when you think about how much you once tried to change others, when all that was ever needed was to become yourself. And in becoming yourself, you give others permission to become themselves too. And that is perhaps the greatest influence any human can ever have. And when that permission begins to ripple outward, you start to notice subtle changes in the way life meets you. People don't rush you in the same way. Conversations don't feel like battles or negotiations. They feel like shared spaces where something can emerge that neither of you could have created alone. And that shared emergence is where real connection lives, because it is not scripted, it is not engineered, it is alive. And alive things are always a little unpredictable, a little fragile, a little miraculous, and you learn to love that fragility. Instead of trying to armor yourself against it, you learn to let moments be what they are instead of what you want them to be. And this softening does not make you weaker, it makes you more resilient, because you are no longer rigid. And what is not rigid does not break, it bends, it adapts, it flows. And in that flow you find a kind of intelligence that is older than thought. It is the intelligence of the body, of the heart, of intuition. And this intelligence is deeply attuned to truth, not factual truth, but relational truth. What is really happening here, what is actually being felt, what is trying to be said beneath the words. And as you become more attuned to this layer, you stop taking things personally in the old way. You realize that most behavior is not about you, it is about unmet needs, unexpressed fears, old wounds seeking resolution. And this realization creates compassion. Not pity, not superiority, but genuine compassion that sees the human behind the pattern. And when you see the human, the pattern loosens, because patterns thrive on being unseen. They thrive in the dark, in the automatic, in the unconscious. But when you bring awareness, they soften, they slow, they sometimes dissolve altogether. And this is why awareness is the true opposite of manipulation. Manipulation needs sleep, it needs unawareness, it needs people moving too fast to notice what is happening inside them. But you are no longer asleep, you are not rushed, you are not numb, you are present, and presence is light, and light changes everything. Even when it changes nothing on the surface, it changes everything underneath. And that is where the real shifts occur, and you begin to trust these invisible shifts more than visible victories, because you see how a single moment of real listening can heal something that years of argument could not, how a single moment of honesty can release a tension that no amount of strategy could untie, how a single moment of silence can speak louder than 1,000 clever words, and you begin to value quality over quantity, depth over speed, truth over advantage. And this reorientation changes the way you move through the world. You walk a little slower, you breathe a little deeper, you listen a little longer, you speak a little less. But when you speak, your words carry weight, because they come from a place that is aligned, and people feel that alignment even if they cannot explain it. They feel safe around it, they feel seen by it, they feel invited into their own truth by it. And sometimes that is uncomfortable, because truth is not always pleasant, but it is always liberating, and liberation does not feel like fireworks. It feels like relief, like putting down a heavy bag you forgot you were carrying, like exhaling after holding your breath for years. And you see that many people are holding their breath metaphorically all the time, holding tension, holding roles, holding expectations, holding pain. And when you exhale around them, when you relax into yourself, you give their nervous system permission to relax too. And this is how healing spreads, not through fixing, but through being. And being is not something you do, it is something you allow. And allowing is an act of trust, trust in yourself, trust in life, trust in the unfolding that does not need your constant interference. And this trust grows slowly. At first it feels fragile, like a small flame that could be blown out by fear or doubt. But as you protect it by returning again and again to presence, to honesty, to integrity, it grows stronger, steadier, warmer. And eventually it becomes a kind of inner fire that warms everything it touches, not by burning, but by illuminating. And in that light you see yourself more clearly, not as a hero, not as a victim, not as a controller, not as a savior, but as a human being learning to be human. And that humility is beautiful, because it keeps you open, it keeps you curious, it keeps you kind, and kindness becomes your natural state, not as a rule, but as a response. And this kindness is not weakness, it is strength without armor, it is courage without aggression, it is clarity without cruelty, and people respond to it in ways that surprise you. Hardened people soften, defensive people relax, manipulative people lose their grip, because there is nothing to grip onto. You are not offering hooks, you are offering space, and space is where freedom lives, and freedom is contagious once someone tastes it. They want more of it, not from you, but for themselves. And you see them begin to question their own patterns, their own games, their own masks, not because you told them to, but because something in your way of being made those patterns feel unnecessary and heavy. And this is the deepest influence of all, not shaping someone into what you want, but inviting them into who they already are beneath the layers of fear and conditioning. And this invitation is always open, it has no deadline, no pressure, no agenda. It simply waits, and those who are ready will step into it, and those who are not will pass by, and both are okay, because you are no longer attached to outcomes, you are attached to truth. And truth does not need everyone's agreement, it only needs your integrity. And integrity is when you live what you know, when you embody what you understand, when your inner and outer worlds speak the same language. And this language is simple, it says, I am here, I am listening, I am real, I am willing to meet you where you are. And from that language whole worlds can be built, relationships, communities, healing movements, not because you planned them, but because they grew naturally around a center of coherence. And you are that center, not as an ego, not as a leader, but as a presence, and presence is enough, presence is always enough. And in this knowing you find peace, not the peace of escape, but the peace of arrival. You have arrived in yourself, and from there everything else is a gift. And from that place of arrival, something very gentle, yet very powerful begins to happen. You stop trying to become someone, and you start allowing yourself to be someone, and that subtle shift changes how every moment feels, because when you are trying to become, you are always leaning into the future, always a little dissatisfied with the present, always measuring what is against what should be. But when you allow yourself to be, you meet the present as it is, and there is a quiet relief in that meeting. A kind of inner unclenching that lets your shoulders drop, your jaw soften, your breath deepen. And in that softened state, you become more receptive to life's signals, the small cues, the quiet invitations, the intuitive nudges that were always there, but were drowned out by noise and urgency. And this receptivity is not passive, it is alive, it is alert, it is sensitive in the best sense of the word, because sensitivity is the ability to notice. And noticing is the doorway to wisdom. You notice when Something feels off before it becomes a problem. You notice when a connection feels nourishing before it becomes a habit. You notice when a boundary needs to be spoken before resentment builds. And you begin to act earlier, reminding yourself gently instead of correcting yourself harshly. And this gentle self-correction is how sustainable change happens, not through punishment, not through pressure, but through care, and care is what the nervous system responds to. It is what allows learning to feel safe. And when learning feels safe, it goes deeper, it stays longer, it becomes part of who you are rather than something you have to remember to do. And this is how the things you once practiced become the way you live. You no longer think about listening, you listen. You no longer think about pausing, you pause. You no longer think about responding with clarity, you respond with clarity. And this naturalization is the sign of integration. It means what you understand has become embodied, and embodiment is the true measure of growth, not what you know, but how you move, how you speak, how you relate, how you treat yourself when no one is watching. And you start to notice that your inner dialogue has changed too. It is kinder, less judgmental, less dramatic. It no longer jumps to conclusions or catastrophes. It waits, it listens, it asks what is really happening here. And this inner listening mirrors the outer listening. And so your whole life becomes a conversation, rather than a battle, a dialogue rather than a debate. And in this dialogue you discover that even difficult emotions have a place. Anger has a message, sadness has a depth, fear has a wisdom. And when you stop trying to get rid of them and start trying to understand them, they become allies rather than enemies. And allies do not need to be controlled, they need to be heard. And hearing them does not mean obeying them, it means acknowledging their presence and their purpose and choosing consciously how to respond. And this conscious choice is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to choose what aligns with your values rather than your impulses. And values are not rules, they are felt truths. They are what matter to you in your bones, what you would stand for even if no one applauded, even if no one agreed. And living from that place gives your life a quiet coherence, a sense that you are not scattered across 1,000 desires, but centered in a few deep ones. And this centering simplifies things. You need less, you chase less, you compare less, because you are anchored, and anchored things are not easily swept away by trends, by opinions, by other people's expectations. And you begin to notice how much energy was once spent managing impressions, defending positions, proving worth, and how much of that energy is now free to be used for creation, for connection, for rest. And rest becomes important not as laziness, but as renewal. You learn that pauses are not empty, they are fertile, that stillness is not stagnation, it is integration, that silence is not awkward, it is spacious. And in that space new insights arise, not because you forced them, but because you finally gave them room. And these insights are often simple, almost disappointingly simple, like be honest sooner, leave when something no longer feels right, say yes when your heart opens, say no when it closes, take care of your body, listen to your intuition, forgive yourself quickly, forgive others generously. And you realize that complexity was often a way of avoiding simplicity, because simplicity demands sincerity, and sincerity demands courage. And courage is not loud, it is quiet, it is the willingness to be seen as you are, without polish, without performance, without protection. And when you do that, you invite others to do the same, and the world becomes a little more real, a little more tender, a little more alive. And you see that this aliveness was what you were seeking all along, not control, not advantage, not security, but aliveness, the feeling of being here, fully participating in the unfolding of life with all its beauty and pain, its joy and grief, its clarity and confusion. And you stop trying to escape the human condition and start inhabiting it. And in inhabiting it you find meaning, not as an abstract concept, but as a lived experience. Meaning is what you feel when your actions align with your heart, when your words align with your truth, when your presence aligns with your values. And this alignment is not static, it is dynamic, it requires attention, it requires care, it requires humility, because you will drift and you will forget and you will fall into old patterns sometimes. And that is not failure, that is being human. And each time you notice and return, you strengthen the muscle of awareness, you deepen the groove of consciousness, and the return becomes faster, gentler, more natural. And you start to trust yourself, not because you are perfect, but because you are responsive, because you listen, because you care, because you are willing to adjust. And that trust is the foundation of self-respect, not the respect of achievement, but the respect of integrity. And integrity is what lets you look at yourself without flinching, without excuses, without shame, and say, I am doing my best to live honestly. And that is enough. And from that enoughness a quiet joy emerges, not the excitement of getting something, but the contentment of being something, of being present, of being aligned, of being alive. And that joy does not depend on circumstances, it flows through them. It is there on good days and bad days, in success and in failure, in connection and in solitude. It is the background hum of a life lived with awareness and care. And as you rest into that hum, you feel held by life rather than pitted against it. You feel part of something larger rather than isolated from it. And that sense of belonging is perhaps the deepest healing of all, because so much suffering comes from the feeling of being separate, alone, unseen. And when you see yourself and allow yourself to be seen, you dissolve a little of that separation. You weave yourself back into the fabric of humanity, and that fabric is messy and imperfect and beautiful and alive, and you are part of it, not above it, not outside it, not in control of it, but within it, contributing your unique thread, your unique tone, your unique presence. And that is enough. That has always been enough. And as you settle into that understanding, something inside you finally stops searching for an exit from life and starts opening a door into it. You are no longer trying to get somewhere else. You are letting yourself arrive here in this moment, in this breath, in this experience, just as it is. And that arrival feels like a soft landing after a very long flight. The nervous system unwinds, the mind quiets, the heart steadies, and in that steadiness, you find a kind of inner home, a place you can return to again and again, no matter what is happening around you. And this inner home is not built from certainty, it is built from trust that you can meet what arises, trust that you can feel what needs to be felt, trust that you can respond rather than react. And this trust becomes the ground you walk on. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is subtle and steady like the earth beneath your feet. And because it is steady, you stop rushing, you stop forcing, you stop clinging, and in that slowing down you begin to notice the small, ordinary wonders that were always there: the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the rhythm of your breath, the sound of someone laughing, the feeling of being understood, the quiet satisfaction of doing something with care and presence. And these simple moments begin to matter more than the big dramatic ones, because they are the texture of life, they are what life is actually made of. And when you start to savor them, you realize that fulfillment is not a destination, it is a way of traveling. It is the way you walk, the way you listen, the way you speak, the way you touch the world, and let the world touch you. And this way of traveling is gentle, it is attentive, it is kind, and kindness becomes your compass, not just toward others, but toward yourself. You stop pushing yourself through life like a tool, and start treating yourself like a living being with rhythms, with limits, with needs, and honoring those rhythms becomes an act of respect, honoring your need for rest, your need for play, your need for solitude, your need for connection. And when you honor your own needs, you become better at honoring the needs of others, not because you feel obligated, but because you understand, you recognize the same longings in them, the same desire to be seen, to be valued, to be safe, to be free. And that recognition creates empathy, not as an idea, but as a felt sense, a resonance, a quiet knowing that says you are like me and I am like you. And in that likeness, the old us versus them dissolves, the old competitions soften, the old judgments lose their sharpness, and what remains is a shared humanity, imperfect, confused, striving, beautiful. And that shared humanity becomes the ground of your ethics, not rules imposed from outside, but care arising from within. You care because you feel connected, you feel responsible, not in a heavy way, but in a natural way, the way you feel responsible for a garden you love. You tend it, you water it, you protect it, not because you have to, but because you want it to thrive. And you begin to see your life as such a garden, a living, evolving space that needs attention, not control, guidance, not domination, presence, not pressure. And this gardening metaphor becomes a way of relating to everything you plant, intentions you water, habits you prune, what no longer serves you allow, what wants to grow, and accept that some seasons are for blooming, and some are for resting, and some are for letting go, and each season has its own beauty, its own purpose, its own lessons. And you stop judging one season by the standards of another. You stop expecting blossoms in winter, you stop demanding rest in summer. You learn to move with the cycles rather than against them. And in that movement, there is a deep harmony, a sense that you are not separate from nature, but part of it, subject to the same rhythms, the same tides, the same laws of growth and decay and renewal. And this realization humbles you and comforts you at the same time. You are small, and you are part of something vast. You are temporary, and you are connected to something enduring. And in that paradox, you find meaning not as something you possess, but as something you participate in, and participation becomes your way of life. You participate in conversations fully, you participate in your work with care, you participate in relationships with honesty, you participate in your own inner life with curiosity and compassion. And this participation makes you feel alive, not in a frantic way, but in a grounded way. You are here, you are engaged, you are present, and presence is the gift you give to the world, not your perfection, not your success, not your control, but your presence, your willingness to show up as you are and meet what is. And that gift is rare and precious in a world that is often distracted, numb, hurried, and afraid. And when you offer it, you become a kind of refuge, a place where things can slow down, where people can be real, where truth can breathe. And you do this not by trying to be special, but by being Sincere and sincerity is magnetic. It draws what is real and repels what is false. And that natural sorting brings clarity into your life. You find yourself surrounded by fewer, but deeper connections, fewer, but more meaningful commitments, fewer, but more aligned pursuits. And that simplicity feels like relief, like space, like freedom. And you see that freedom was never about having no limits. It was about choosing the right ones, choosing what you give your time to, your energy to, your heart to, and choosing from awareness rather than from fear or habit or pressure. And as you continue to choose in this way day after day, moment after moment, you build a life that feels like yours, not because it is perfect, but because it is authentic, and authenticity is what lets you rest inside your own experience without needing to escape it or justify it or perform it. And in that rest there is peace, not a passive peace, but an alive peace, a peace that can hold joy and sorrow, success and failure, clarity and confusion without collapsing. And that peace becomes your true strength, not the strength to dominate or defend, but the strength to remain open, the strength to remain kind, the strength to remain present. And that is perhaps the deepest form of power, not power over others, not power over circumstances, but the power to stay awake, to stay conscious, to stay loving in a world that often forgets. And in staying awake, you become a quiet reminder, a living example that another way is possible, a way that is softer and stronger, slower and deeper, simpler and richer, a way that does not chase life, but meets it, that does not try to control the river, but learns to swim with it. And in that swimming you discover that the river was never your enemy, it was always carrying you somewhere beautiful, and you were always meant to trust it, to feel it, to be part of it, and now you are, and that is the end and the beginning of everything.